Now, recently, a lot of YouTubers have been going to investigate Zorro Ranch, an estate out in the desert between Santa Fe and Albuquerque. And the ranch has been the subject of a lot of debate and conspiracy theories, obviously due to its former owner. But a man the Republican Party recently nominated to run for office bought the estate 3 years before New Mexico launched an investigation into it. And if it wasn't weird enough, several weapons on the estate have been missing since 2018. But first off, shout out to everybody that pulled up to the Twitch stream. I'll be trying to go live on there every Thursday around 3 p.m. Central Time, and I'll pick a day on the weekend too, but most likely Saturday or Sunday at the same time. So make sure you guys don't miss the next live, and we'll go behind the scenes together and do some research for another video. Now back to the ranch. So when I was watching some YouTubers visit the ranch, there always appeared to be private security, and at first glance I wondered, why is this estate being guarded? It made me look deeper into it. Like, was this estate passed down to one of Jeffrey's associates in his will? Well, first off, the estate was sold to Jeffrey by Bruce King, a man who was the governor of New Mexico 3 different times, including when the property was sold. And his family has seemingly denied any involvement with Jeffrey, despite them taking donation money from him and flying on his jet.
His cousin Gary King, the former Attorney General of New Mexico, who also ran for governor, claimed in one news report that he was unaware he had chartered Epstein's plane during a campaign flight in 2014, despite Epstein file releases that indicate he might have known. Another document shows his campaign thanks Epstein in 2014 for his commitment to raise $50,000.
But in August 2023, it was reported that the ranch sold for an undisclosed amount to the San Rafael Ranch LLC, according to the Santa Fe County assessor. But no name was given. But it was noted that the LLC had just been registered a month before the purchase. So it seems like the person who bought the ranch either wanted it to be kept secret, or they just had plans to operate it under this new LLC all along. But around the same time that the Truth Commission was created to investigate the ranch, a spokesperson for Don Huffines told The Independent that his family had purchased the property at a public auction whose proceeds benefited victims. And although that part is kind of hard to verify, there is a compensation fund for the victims.
We did hear back from the Epstein estate, who says the proceeds will be used to pay the estate's creditors.
Now, I had never heard of Don, but he's from Dallas, and he not only ran for governor in Texas, but in 2026, the Republican Party nominated him as their candidate for Texas Comptroller, which is the position responsible for collecting all state tax revenue in Texas. So what would a Texas politician want with this ranch? Well, Don is a real estate developer, and he claims that he bought the ranch to turn it into a Christian retreat.
This was obviously a dark place, and we wanted to put light in a dark place. It always shines the brightest when you do that. The plan all along is to make this property into a Christian retreat.
And I understand that something like this might take time, but he bought the ranch in 2023, 3 years before any investigation. And as of April 2026 at least, there's been no such mention of any retreat being developed. And of course, he also insisted that before the purchase, he had never visited the property. A very strange way to buy a ranch, you could say. Most people wouldn't even buy a car without at least sitting in it, but I guess it's possible that he just heard the money would benefit victims, so he bought it. Although it's also possible that he could have just donated to the fund and that it wasn't really necessary to buy the actual property. And Don, despite being against the current Republican Texas governor, is a strong ally of President Donald Trump, as illustrated by this post on Don's actual website. And no, this is not a parody or someone making fun of him. This is an actual screenshot from his website. And it just seems kind of theatrical. Politics doesn't have to be entertainment, but I mean, I guess he is kind of old, so it is possible that he actually saw this picture and decided he should put it side by side just to prove that Trump actually did endorse him. But he could have also used this picture to, I don't know, show a graph to illustrate how he was more responsible in managing the state's tax revenue, which is the job of the position that he's running for. And what's a little suspicious is the fact that Don just posted in February 2026 that he planned on turning the ranch into a Christian retreat. A very convenient timing, since that was the exact same month that New Mexico announced that they were going to launch an investigation. So some could interpret that once the investigation was launched, it was going to come out that Don was the owner anyway, so his team hastily announced that they had a plan for the ranch all along. But why 3 years later? If it was always your plan to make this a Christian retreat, why announce it 3 years later at the same time the ranch started making the news? It would have been less suspicious to just announce it in 2023 when you bought it, before everyone started questioning everything associated with Jeffrey. He even says in the same post that his family's ownership had been made public in 2024. But clearly, no one cared because most of us had no idea what Zorro Ranch was in 2024. So was this just a move to look good on his campaign? Or was it a move to make his purchase look less suspicious? Either way, I don't think either of those would have been achieved anyway. I'm not even sure that Christians even want this ranch to be a retreat. I personally would find it to be a very strange and eerie place to be in general. And the Truth Commission. the body that's in charge of this investigation that should have taken place almost 10 years ago. Just like most government commissions, I am suspicious, mainly because by their own admission, their investigation does not involve bringing anyone to justice for potential crimes committed on the ranch. On the New Mexico government website, the commission states their purpose is to investigate the role New Mexico played in failing to identify the crimes that took place at the ranch. So their goal is to figure out why they did nothing. Do we really need an entire commission to investigate why people got away with committing crime on the ranch instead of actually holding anyone accountable? Because I think the answer will be the same answer as to why other people associated with this guy got away with every other alleged crime. Is this going to cost money? And why wasn't this a federal investigation? Does the ranch of a New Yorker under federal investigation, where crime was supposed to take place in New Mexico, not cross state lines? Now, I'm not a lawyer or anything, but I'm pretty sure that when you cross state lines committing crime, that makes it federal. He owned this ranch for almost 30 years. Why now? And another consequence of launching an investigation almost a decade too late are the missing weapons, of which there are several pieces of photographic evidence. And according to the Santa Fe New Mexican, all of these weapons vanished from the property in 2018, and the staff never reported any of it to the police, which makes sense because someone was already a felon by 2018, and thus had no legal right to have them in his possession. But of course they vanished right before he was arrested by the FBI. And as of 2026, that case is still cold. And although reports of graves on the property weren't proven, it's still very suspicious. Admitting ownership of this ranch and the fact that you purchased it isn't as suspicious as why you waited 3 years until everybody learned about the ranch to say that you bought it. And why someone would buy a place like this just to return it into a religious retreat is beyond me. And also, I'm not an expert at building retreats, but how long would it possibly take? It's already been 3 years, and what kind of development? Is there an update on the development? Because I haven't seen any. He just announced these plans for it in February, like around the time everybody learned about this ranch. Why now? Just like with the investigation, why now? And why would he ever purchase such a thing, especially without ever visiting it before he purchased it? He paid over $10 million in property taxes for this place. And I don't believe that the property taxes went toward the auction, so why spend all of this money on a place that you never even visited? Is the reason actually religiously motivated? And does this purchase have anything to do with his relationship with Donald Trump? It's hard to say, because just like everything associated with Jeffrey, it just raises more questions. Already being in the circles and known for doing what he was doing in the 90s, he bought this property from a sitting governor. And now it's owned by a former congressman who has now been nominated to run for an even bigger office in Texas. But I guess that explains the private security, since when the place did come into the spotlight, of course, a lot of people started visiting and also trespassing. But again, we don't have any proof of any wrongdoing, and the state of New Mexico does not seem willing to uncover any wrongdoing. Hence by the creation of an entire commission whose whole job is to say, we saw this happen and we didn't do anything about it. Here's why we didn't do anything about it, which is not helpful in any way. But I appreciate you guys for always watching and supporting. Make sure you go follow me on Twitch so we can go behind the scenes and go in the lab together and toss ideas off of each other. And of course, I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.